The UNC Pembroke football team improved to 4-0 with a 49-35 win against North Greenville. Full coverage of that game and the next one at Tuskegee is coming up on the Black and Gold Report. Both the women's and men's soccer team won their Peach Belt Conference openers against Clayton State last week. The women's team then followed it up with a huge 1-0 upset win over number 9 Columbus State. The Braves returned to Pembroke for a home doubleheader against Francis Marion on Wednesday at 5 p.m. Speaking of soccer, the grounds in Pembroke were renamed Lumbee River EMC Stadium after an announcement last week of a new 15-year partnership that will include upgrades around the stadium. UNCP volleyball dropped a pair of weekend matches against Montevallo and Columbus State. The next home volleyball contest is Tuesday at 7 p.m. UNC Pembroke Cross Country was in Nashville, Tennessee last weekend for the NCAA Division II Showcase Invitational, where the men finished 7th and the women finished 6th. And after top 2 finishes in the first 2 tournaments of the year, UNCP women's golf carded a 9th place finish in last weekend's tournament in Bluffton. And last but certainly not least, the inaugural UNCP swim and dive season kicks off today. We'll hear from Coach Rhonda Blank later in the show. The Black and Gold Report starts now. Welcome to another episode of the Black and Gold Report presented by Pepsi, a show all about UNC Pembroke athletics. I'm Cameron Songer, and this week we talked to UNCP football head coach Shane Richardson about his team's win over the North Greenville University Crusaders. We'll also preview this week's road trip to take on an undefeated Tuskegee squad. Later, we'll talk to UNCP swim and dive head coach Rhonda Blank with her team's first season starting up. But first, it's my pleasure to be joined in studio by head football coach Shane Richardson. Coach, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me back.
Let's talk about this past game. It was a big one for your team on Saturday, taking down North Greenville 49-35. What were your big takeaways?
I think we have a team that knows how to throw the first punch now. That was a theme that we talked about all week long. We did a great job of coming out and playing the first half like it needed to be played. I feel like the second half could have been a little better in some areas, but all in all, I feel like our guys were up to the task. We came out, we attacked it, and we had a really good week of practice last week. We've been talking a lot about how much preparation carries over into how you're going to play the game on Saturday. And we had a team that took that very serious. I think we're growing and learning from some mistakes that we're making or that we've seen in the first few games of the season. And I think each week we're able to focus on some of those things and get better and better, and I think our guys are responding to those.
Let's talk about the game, starting with the first quarter. It had a little bit of a different feel right from the beginning in that the offense kind of got going. UNCP scored on its first possession. What went right early?
I think just the energy, the anxiety, I guess, would be some of it. Just the emotional capacity to go out and really want to play and do well right in the beginning. We talked all week about making sure that it wasn't just an emotional up and down game where we've kind of experienced that in the past a little bit over the weeks, but yet trying to keep a consistency of focusing on our execution. I think we came out with a lot of energy. I think we came out with a lot of execution. I think our guys were really focused in, and I think each side of the ball really drew from each other on that as well, because what you saw in the first half was our whole complete team really getting after it in all 3 phases of the game, and I thought it was really good to see.
Now, after a UNCP 3-and-out on the second drive, offense started clicking again at the end of the first quarter. Trey Chandler cashing in a 59-yard reception. Talk about that big momentum play a little bit.
Trey's a very bursty, quick, elusive skill player for us. And to get the ball in his hands, if you see it on film, you're able to see how there's about 4 guys that try to converge on him, and he just gets right up in through the hole and makes a little crease out to be a lot more. And it was great to see. Trey's not a guy that's gotten the ball a lot, and so I think it was good to give him some confidence, get our other guys rallying around Trey as well, and I think it's good for our team to see that we're not just only a couple weapons here or there, but that we have a lot of different variety of guys that we can go to.
Looking at the second quarter now, it was all Braves. Your team scored 2 more times, kept the Crusaders off the scoreboard, meaning that it was 28-7 at halftime. Talk about how the defense really stepped up throughout the first half, especially in the second quarter.
Yeah, I really liked the way our defense played really the whole first half. I think we were only on the field for about 27, 28 plays or something like that, which really makes a difference. When your offense is controlling the clock and controlling the ball, you're able to give the defensive guys a little bit of a rest so that we could go out and take the field with a great motivation and a great energy level and great enthusiasm every series that we went out there. And I think we just kind of rode that wave of momentum and confidence that we had built up there, and they really took that in to halftime with them.
At halftime, it must have been kind of a different vibe in the locker room. The Braves comfortably ahead for the first time all season. What was the kind of the message to the team, and how was it different than maybe the first 3 games?
Yeah, I think I was a little out of my comfort zone a little bit there, but it was a message that we had to make sure that our guys knew to not let our guard down, and we knew that North Greenville would come back just like we actually did a year ago. And their message was going to be the same thing that we talked about a year ago at their place. We're not going to give up. We're gonna get back in this thing one play at a time. And I think North Greenville did that. Offensively, they had a good plan in the second half. Defensively, I felt like we kind of became a little complacent. We gave up some big plays and made it a little bit more closer than what I thought it should have been. But credit our offense in the second half for continue to score points and definitely give us a sizable lead to make sure that we were feeling good about.
All right, Coach, we need to take our first time out here on the Black and Gold Report, but when we come back, Shane Richardson will be back with more, talking about the rest of that game against North Greenville and the preview of the game against Tuskegee coming up next. Welcome back to the Black and Gold Report. I'm joined once again by UNCP football coach Shane Richardson. And Coach, it was kind of a different feel in the locker room. You had a special guest, but also a surprise for your players before the game against North Greenville. Talk about both, I guess.
I think there was a couple of really neat things that took place building up to the game. We had Malachi Townsend, a little boy that has muscular dystrophy, and that weekend was recognized amongst the AFCA as the coaches wore the patches on our shirts, and we're trying to recognize a form of muscular dystrophy called Duchenne, and it's something where it's 100% fatal. It's something where Malachi was confined to a wheelchair ever since he was 5 years old, and really has lost a lot of mobility. And we wanted to do something special for him, bring him into the locker room, recognize him, and really tried to include him in the whole team atmosphere. And what I really thought was neat about that was our team rallied around that. And we talk about being a giver and not just a taker. And I thought it was really neat to see our players be able to see up close and personal what playing college football means in terms of it being a great honor and privilege, because a guy like Malachi, he would never get that opportunity. And we told him, we're going to go out there and we're going to play this game for you and make it a premier performance for you. And then we also had another surprise for him. We had gotten white pants for the guys, and they had been asking about them all throughout the offseason, and they wondered when they were going to be broken out. They thought it was going to be the first game. They thought it was going to be the second game at home. And we kept holding off. I kept kind of trying to get the vibe to see, and I kept calling their bluff on it a little bit. And so I thought this opportunity was a great opportunity to do that. We were 3-0 coming into a big game, and it was a game where I thought was very fitting for them to go into the locker room after pregame warm-ups, see the white pants hanging in their lockers, and they were very excited when we walked in there. So I think they fed off that energy as well.
And we talked a lot about, over the course of the season, about discipline and composure. Your team didn't have the costly penalties against North Greenville, and the Crusaders kind of did on Saturday, which is a big part of the game. How does that make you feel as a coach to see your team perform like that?
Great. When we looked at our penalty report yesterday and we looked at the cut-up of that, we still had 8 or 9 penalties out there that, you don't want many at all, if any at all. But our goal is to be 5 or less. and I think we were 9, and so we've still got to do a better job of the penalties that are really not during the play. Anything pre-snap or post-snap, we can take care of, and that's going to be a discipline factor. That's going to be a lot of a mental process to where we're staying on side and not false starting and things like that. But we'll continue to get better at that because we emphasize them as a team, and I think that's hidden yardage where you don't beat yourselves and you can gain some when you let the other team kind of make those mistakes.
Let's talk about individual performances from Saturday now. The one that obviously jumps out is Patrick O'Brien, quarterback, 34 of 39 passing, 330 passing yards, 4 TDs through the air, 2 rushing touchdowns, and all of that coming after a 5-interception game the week before. What does that mean for your team and for Patty?
Well, Pat did a fantastic job this week of bouncing back from the 5 interceptions that he threw a week ago, and that was a great compliment to his character, his work ethic, his ability to focus in on getting some corrections made and just making sure that his focus was in the right place. He had a tough week of practice. There was some adversity thrown at him, and the way that he played on Saturday, I think, gave you a great insight as to how good of a quarterback that he can be for us.
The top target in the passing game, once again, B.J. Bunn, a season-high 2 touchdown grabs, but other guys also had big numbers in the receiving game. Talk about that unit as a whole.
Well, the receiving core, going into the season, we thought, wow, we're a little bit thin here. God, we need a couple more bodies, and it's turned out to be a very well-rounded unit right now going into week 5. And I think with BJ's ability to do what we ask of him, and I think everybody kind of knows what we're getting out of him by now, he's going to be a big-time performer for us. That opens up opportunities for everybody else. And then when everybody else takes advantage of those opportunities that they're getting, it makes BJ even better. And so I think everybody kind of is able to respond just from that whole unit, knowing that we're here for each other and we're going to keep pushing in each other and being competitive every day in practice and be able to take advantage of our opportunities when they come to us.
On the defensive side of the ball, Elijah Williams led the way with 11 tackles. Khalil Hollis had 8. Tyler Threet had an interception. What were your thoughts on the defensive performance overall against North Greenville?
Yeah, overall, we talked about it as a defense. The first half I thought was outstanding. I really felt our code black vibe and the ability to play hard, play fast, and play together was there for sure. But then, as I mentioned earlier, I thought the second half could have been a little more consistent. I thought we gave up some plays when we started to get fatigued a little bit. We started to maybe check out a little bit of our alignment, assignment technique, and the execution fell through the cracks a little bit there. And so we've got to make sure that everything stays tight. We were running some of our base defensive stuff, and that's something where you go back and say, God, this stuff is from day 1 of fall camp. And this is the stuff that we want to really be able to rest on and know that we can go to at any point in the game. And we've just got to be better. We've got to execute it better, and we will. I think we'll emphasize that and make sure that that gets done.
All right, Coach. When we come back on the Black and Gold Report, we'll preview that crucial away game for UNCP football against Tuskegee coming up this weekend. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the Black and Gold Report. I'm Cameron Songer, joined once again by UNCP football coach Shane Richardson as we kind of turn our attention now ahead. And the Braves are 4-0 on the season right now, getting some attention in the national polls for D2 football. How do you look at those and then manage your team's expectations?
It's a great honor and great privilege to be talked about in the national polls. I would also tell you that I think our program kind of expects to be in a place like that. Our vision is to be recognized as the premier Division II program in the country, in NCAA. And so I don't think that should come as a shock to our players. I think it's somewhat of an expectation. While it is, we're not going to make too much of it. We're not going to belittle that. We want to make sure that our standard and our goal at the end of the day is we want to play our best week in and week out. We want to improve week in and week out. And we'll talk about that as a team and make sure that we're keeping guys grounded. But I think it's also a tribute to their hard work and just guys focusing on what we need to do week in and week out, and we are sitting here 4-0, and it's a great feeling and it's a great vibe, and I think it breeds confidence. It breeds us making sure that we stay on track and focus on the right things.
Up next for your team, a very tough road game against Tuskegee. What can you tell us about the Golden Tigers, what it's going to take for the Braves to get to 5-0?
Well, Tuskegee has a great program, a great tradition. They've got another great team this year. When they came up here last year, it was the first time that we had played against them, and I don't think that we really understood what their team was about, and we got a little feel for them. It's going to be an exciting matchup, and it's going to be a very good environment that we're going to go to. If you look up on YouTube, you can see some footage on there of just the excitement that they bring to the table, and the crowd that really backs them and gets behind them, and we're really looking forward to that environment. But it's going to be a great challenge for our guys to go on the road, semi-long road trip, and be able to handle that with maturity, understand the execution that still needs to take place one play at a time, and making sure that we stay together on that. And so it's a great challenge in front of us, but a great test to see that we can overcome that.
You talked a little about last year's game against Tuskegee. It was a 29-17 win in Pembroke. It was UNCP's homecoming, so that obviously added a little bit to it. But does that result give your team extra confidence going in, and is that a good thing?
I think it's great. I think it's a really good thing, because sometimes if you go into another environment and you're not quite sure where you kind of match up, or you haven't played them in the past, there's some uncertainty there. And so I think being able to play well against them last year gives us great confidence. Now we've got to stir that hunger and desire to know that this year is a different year, and we've got to be able to come out and still throw the first punch and keep punching all the way through the four quarters. And I fully expect our team to put this game together, and I think they know the importance of it. I think they understand that each one gets critical as we go. It's still never about our opponent. It's all about how we do things, and we're going to still focus on the right things as far as we're concerned.
Speaking of throwing the first punch, it's something your team did this past Saturday against North Greenville. It ended up being a pretty close game, or not necessarily a close game, but like an interesting game coming down to nearly the home stretch. Your team was leading by 14 or 21, basically the whole second half. Would you have liked to have seen your team put the game away and kind of just, roll to the finish?
Yeah, I think you always want to see that as a coach. You want to feel like you're dominating your opponent in all phases of the game. You want to be able to execute everything possible out there on the field. But with that, it gives us a reason to coach this week. One thing about coaching and playing the game of football is it just doesn't stop, and there's new challenges each week, and there's so many moving parts that you got to focus on a lot of different things and continue to try to build on those things and get better at those things each week.
All right, Coach, thanks, and good luck this weekend against Tuskegee. As a reminder, fans, a live audio broadcast for that game will be available. For more information, visit uncpbraves.com. Time for our last break. The Black and Gold Report returns right after these messages.